Welcome, everyone, to Lemon Live at 5, the Don Lemon Show. Thank you for being here. It is a crazy day, a crazy time. Look, we're in the middle of a possible government shutdown. They were meeting at the White House just a little bit ago, and the folks came out. Before we get to that, I'll tell you what came out of it, and you're going to hear from some of the players. But first, we're going to have our say on what's happening here in the United States, these United States of America. I don't believe that you get enough of the truth coming from either the manosphere, especially the bloggers and right-wing bros who litter it's not even airwaves, the streaming space like garbage, spreading hate and lies. And then also in corporate media as well. So we're going to be here and we're going to tell you your voice. We're going to be truth tellers, just like I did this morning. So make sure you hit the like, hit the thumbs up. It affects the algorithm. More people become aware of our channel here, our rapidly growing channel, and our conversation that you guys are a party to every single day. If you're in the chats, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're there, and we will put you up. We highlight your comments here, and I rip off of your comments. So go for it, okay? Thank you, Mail Mom. I appreciate you keeping us informed. I appreciate you liking that. So good evening, everyone. This morning, I asked one question, and I said, white men, are you okay? Tonight, the question is bigger. It is, America, are you okay? America, are you awake? Because the government of the most powerful nation on earth is about to slam the brakes on itself. Again. Almost the same players every single time. Caring about the rich, not the poor, not the working class, not the people who will not get a paycheck if they shut the government down. And do not let anyone fool you about why. This is not about budgets or deficits or some noble crusade for fiscal responsibility. This is about power. Chaos really dressed up as principle. Yeah. It's about people who light the match and then they point at someone else when the house burns down. You know the type. We've seen them in DC forever. So at about 3:15 this afternoon, Donald Trump finally sat down with some of the Democratic leaders, with Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, congressional leaders. They met because the clock is ticking towards a shutdown. But, I mean, let's remember something here. A few days ago, Donald Trump canceled the previous meeting. He walked away. He told the country their demands were unserious. The demands of the Democrats, that they were unserious. Ridiculous, he said. He said he wanted to keep the government open, but pushed it closer to the edge with every move. I want to keep it open, but then he keeps pushing it closer to the edge of a shutdown. This is not an accident, folks. You guys, you have to know how to read these people. This is the point. Like we say, the cruelty is the point. This is strategy, the way they're doing it, because you don't cancel talks if you want a deal. You cancel talks when you want the collapse, when you want the government to shut down. You walk out because the wreckage serves you, because you think the chaos will break people's trust. Because the less faith the public has in the government, the more power that you can grab for yourself. That's what I believe is at work here. And now, as this new meeting just ended, there you see the leaders in front of the White House speaking there. You're going to hear from them in a moment. As the pressure mounts here, we hear reports, and these are just reports, okay? So thank you. Someone just read my mind. Yogi Pretzel said, I hope Schumer and Jeffries don't cave like they did last time. There are reports that Schumer might be preparing to cave. Now, I don't know if that's true, but those are the reports out there. I think maybe Axios or someone is reporting it. Someone like that is saying he's asking for maybe 10 more days so that they have more time to work on it. Remember Schumer caved last time? And then, so here we go again. Yeah, here it is. This is from Andrew. Just said, yeah, and Axios. As Schumer calls, first reported by Axios. Schumer has approached a small group of Senate Dems to see if they're okay with short-term CR, 10 days, for example, but with a caveat, assuming Trump agrees to negotiation on ACA subsidies, this would create a deadline for a deal. Here we go again. Where is the backbone? Where is the fire that says the people who shut this government down own it? That the chaos they cause cannot be rewarded with concessions. That you do not give hostage takers more hostages. Instead, what we see right here is the same Washington ritual that we see every single time. The ritual of brinksmanship, the ritual of folding, the ritual of leaders who confuse keeping the peace with keeping the public safe. And the people threatening to shut this country down are the same people who claim that they want to take it back. We got to take back our country. Take back what? Take it back to what? To broke? To broken? It was that way when Trump left. Biden had to fix it. It was that way, quite frankly, when Bush left. Obama had to fix it every single time. Take it back to what? To broke, to broken, to rubble that they created, to a government so gutted that it cannot fight a virus or inspect food or deliver mail on time? Yeah, you remember it throughout the emergency pandemic playbook. And then COVID came and they didn't know what to do. And then the economy started crashing and then, oh my gosh. Can't fight a virus. You can't inspect food or deliver mail on time. That's what's going to take that. Is that what you want? They are marching you toward crisis while telling you that it is leadership. They're walking people, all of us, off of a cliff. And then saying, okay, well, this is just the moral high ground. So let's talk about realities here, okay? Let's be real here. Let's talk about what happens when the lights actually go out, right? When the government shuts down. Federal agencies have been told to prepare. Health and Human Services would furlough nearly half of its staff. The Center for Disease Control, the CDC, the National Institutes of Health, Public Health gets gutted first. Scientists are sent home. Inspectors are sent home. Food safety slowed down. Disease tracking slowed down. Air traffic controllers. How do you feel about that? And TSA agents. They will be working without pay. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers will be in limbo. They're in limbo right now, wondering how they will make rent or pay for child care if this actually goes down. That's what they're wondering. And then when it goes down, they will be wondering in real time. This doesn't just pause the country. It's not like, okay, the country's paused. We're going to take a vacation. We're going to be quiet and chill. Everybody's going to stay in their homes like we did during COVID. It's not just a pause in the country. It weakens it. Programs will lose funding because of this. Research loses momentum. Contracts break. The damage does not end when the shutdown ends. It lingers. These things have a tail. And the same politicians doing this to you will go on television tomorrow and they're going to blame someone else. They're doing it right now. Because remember who is in control of the government right now. Who is in control of every single branch of government. And then they're going to say, oh, well, it's the Democrats. The Democrats said they want health care. They want the tax credits for the ACA. That's what they say they want. Why can't you get tax credits for the Affordable Care Act? I don't get it. Trump has already warned that any pain would be caused by Democrats. See, they're already starting it. The talking points are ready. The narrative is written. We offered solutions. They refused. We had no choice. That is the lie. Because the people canceling meetings, the people walking away from talks, the people demanding the country bend to their will before they sign a single check, they are the ones shutting it down. And when Democrats like Schumer look ready to fold, it sends one message, and that is you just push hard enough, the people elected to stand up to you will collapse on cue. That power only has to threaten pain before the so-called resistance starts looking for a polite way out. That's not leadership. No, that's surrender. And it teaches the arsonist a lesson. Light a bigger fire next time. Make the threat even louder. Drag the country closer to the edge, because eventually the other side is going to give you exactly what you want. If you can just hold out like it's some grand real estate deal. No, we're not going to hold out for the extra 250,000. We're going to make them wait till the end. It's plain as day. This is not governing. It is vandalism. It is political arson, and it is the slow hollowing out of a country so that the only parts left standing are the ones that they control. The military stays open. The border stays open. Do you get where I'm going with this? Military stays open. The border stays open. The tax breaks stay open. But public health, social services, consumer protections, environmental safeguards, the things that keep ordinary people safe, well, those get burned first. So when they shout, take back the country, ask them this. Take it back to what? To a place where the government cannot function, where public services collapse, where everything that does not serve the powerful gets defunded or sold off? That is the plan. The plan is to break it, to make you angry at the chaos. I told you about that this morning when I was asking you, hey, white men, are you okay? The point is to make you angry. And you're angry at the chaos. Then to sell you on the idea that only they can fix it. I alone can fix this. Remember that? The same arsonist promising to rebuild the house that they set on fire. Do not let them. Do not let them tell you that this is normal. Do not let them pretend that this is business as usual. Do not let them march you toward a shutdown and then ask for your gratitude when they finally let the lights come back on. Oh my God, look how we fixed this. Look how amazing we are. The country is not a hostage to be ransomed every few months. It is not a bargaining chip for personal power, and it should not be acceptable for the people elected to serve you to treat your life like leverage in some performance of strength. We have the leverage. They want it. We're going to hold out for this deal. They want this condo in my tower. They're going to hold out. This is not strength. It's failure, dressed up as courage. It's cruelty, dressed as conviction. It is weakness hiding behind the whole theater of it all that we get every single time. Aren't you tired of the theater? Every single time you held hostage, ransom, and they use the American people as leverage. And the only way that it stops is that people refuse to play along, refuse to shrug and say, Washington is broken, refuse to let them shut it down and then spin it as leadership. Because the truth is very simple here. The people breaking it, they own it. You break it, you buy it. You break it, you own it. The people canceling meetings, own it. The people lighting the match, own the fire. The leaders who fold in the face of it, own that too. And no amount of spin or slogans or blame shifting changes any of that. So I say to you again, America, are you okay? America, are you awake? Because they are counting on you to sleep right through the fire. My friend Tim Wise is here to talk about what's going on. We're going to talk about the shutdown. We're going to talk about what's happening in America. Is America okay? Are white men okay? Tim Wise is the author and activist, critical race theorist, and senior fellow at the African American Policy Forum. Later on, We're going to be joined by Dan Rayfield, who's the Attorney General of the state of Oregon. We're going to talk about the National Guard being brought there on the streets of that city. So, Tim, I said, America, are you okay? I'm sure you saw the thing this morning where I said, white men, are you okay? I don't know. I'm not on social that much. I hear a lot of people are pissed at me, as they were back in the day when Christopher Wray said the biggest threat to America was domestic terror, white men radicalized to the right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's the same.
Okay.
It would, well, as a white man, I should know the answer to that. I'm doing all right. I mean, all things considered, but no, I think the answer is that white America, broadly speaking, is not okay. If by okay we mean, are we coping with the change culturally, politically, socially, economically in a country that was always multiracial, multicultural, but which we alone had the luxury and the privilege of believing was ours, right? James Baldwin famously said America was never a white country, but white folks didn't get that memo. And so only now, as the country changes and shifts demographically, culturally, et cetera, do we suddenly sort of lose our mind about our position in the world and have this exaggerated response of politically motivated violence? Yes. Random, seemingly mass violence? Yes. And also some of the internal directed destruction as well, the disproportionate suicide rates, the disproportionate opioid rates, the disproportionate rates of cirrhosis and heavy drinking, the disproportionate rates of all of that, the so-called deaths of despair, which 15 years ago were identified as disproportionately happening in white, small town, non-college educated, working class places. And it led me to ask the question, and I certainly wasn't alone in this, why is it that people who were objectively not the worst off, objectively, I'm not saying white folks don't struggle, millions do, but objectively on any indicator of social well-being, black folks are always well below white folks and white folks are better off. So why is it that black folks weren't going out and doing that stuff? Why is it that they weren't the ones going and disproportionately shooting up places or engaging in ideological violence based on their politics, or going or even the internally directed stuff, the opioid addiction, the suicides, the heavy drinking, all of that? And the only thing that I could come up with, since it wasn't objective, quantitative pain or misery, was that white folks, and particularly white men, have been led to believe, and I say this as a guy who's going to be 57 next week, we have been led to believe from the time that we emerged from the womb that the world was our oyster. And as long as we did certain things right, played by the rules, kept our nose clean, kept our head down, that we would be okay, and that we would have opportunity, and the jobs would come, and we'd have health care, and we'd be able to afford college for our kids, and our kids would be better off than we were. And for most of American history, that's sort of how it worked out. There were folks that fell through the cracks, but generally speaking, that was true. Now, black folks knew that was bullshit. Most brown folks knew that it was not that easy, right? They understood that life was a grind and you were going to have to get out there and be twice as good to get half as far. But white folks were basically told, y'all can be half as good and get twice as far. Mediocrity was allowed and, in fact, rewarded. Once that began to diminish even just a little, because it hasn't gone away. We got a very mediocre white man running the country, and his mediocre white male children are helping him in some way, shape, or form, and have been. Mediocrity is still rewarded, but it's not as much of a guarantee. So now you got black and brown folk whose voices get heard. Now you got black and brown folk writing histories that we actually might have to pay attention to. You have black and brown folks in political positions. I wrote a book, Dear White America, back in 2012, where I talked about all of the change happening and Barack Obama being the thing that really broke white folks' brains, right? You got a black guy at the top, the boss, so to speak, of the country, and the demographics are shifting, and the definition of an all-American boy or girl doesn't necessarily look like you anymore, and the culture is multicultural. And for a lot of white folks, that has produced a perfect storm of white anxiety. And in some cases, it leads to this orgy of violence and seemingly just over the top ideological and whether it's mass shootings, whether it's driving your truck into a church, whatever it is. And so, that's a long way of saying, no, things are not okay with a certain subset of white folks who have been led to believe that if they just did the right thing, their life would be a 7, 8, 9, or 10 on a 10-point scale. But they've learned, oh shit, maybe it's just a 5. What do I do? You promised me an 8. I got a 5. And I don't know what to do with that. Black folks knew to get the 8, they were going to have to work. White folks thought, man, I can just get an 8 because that's the way it works, right? And if it's not that way for some people, and they become frustrated at the sense of entitlement betrayed, this is the kind of thing they do. They either lash out or they lash in, and either way, it's destructive.
I think, Tim, thank you for that, by the way. I think you heard part of my opening take moments ago. And you have these folks who are running the government right now. A lot of them are wealthy, really wealthy. They are co-opting poor people, a lot of the MAGA base, poor white people. And they are there making all of the money but somehow serving up aggrievement, right? Yeah. Grievance to the masses, and the masses become angry. And just like with this threat of this looming shutdown right now, they want to gin up the fear and blame it on the other, when they are the people who are actually in control of the government. They are the people who are giving the tax breaks to the rich people, and then they're going to cut off services to the poor people. Right. What gives here? Why do people vote against their own interests? That's why I say, America, are you awake? Are you okay?
Well, two things. I mean, one is, in their mind, they're not voting against their interests because they define their interest differently than you and I might presume their interest. So we might think, why would you vote for something that's going to pick your pocket and put more of your money in the hands of rich folks? Because they're going to break your unions, and they're going to replace your job with AI, and they're going to give tax cuts to Elon, but not you, all of that. But for white Americans, let's just understand the history here. And this is what, they don't teach this in Econ 101. And a lot of people on the left don't understand this if they come out of a class-based analysis rather than a race-based analysis. The longest standing trick in the book in this country, going back to the colonial period, long before we were a country, is for rich European descended people who weren't even called white yet to tell other poor European descended people who were not called white yet that their enemies were those darker skinned folks over there. In other words, you had a lot of poor folks in the colonies. Bacon's Rebellion would be a famous example, but there were others where you had landless, impoverished, quote unquote white and quote unquote black folks who realized they had a commonality of interest in overthrowing the landed aristocracy in Virginia or wherever, and they would foment rebellion. And the rich folks were good at math, so they looked around and they realized, oh shit, we are outnumbered by all these landless people. We need a trick that will split these people from one another. What's the best way to do that? Convince these poor people who we're now going to call white. We didn't call them white in England. We didn't call them white in Europe. Northern Italians didn't even think Southern Italians were Italians, and English didn't think they were European, and everybody hated the Germans, and the Irish were hated by the Anglos. There was no big one white family, but in the colonies, it became necessary to create laws, practices, and customs that elevated everyone who could now be called white above anyone who could not be. So you take the poor and you say, you're on our team. You give them a badge and you put them on the slave patrol. You say, you're on our team. You're wearing our uniform. You're not going to get in the game very much. We really don't love you that much. But we're going to make sure you're better off than those people over there. And so what's happened over hundreds of years is that white folks, having internalized that belief that as long as we're not last place, we're okay. We may not be winning relative to the rich, but as long as we're ahead of somebody, we can feel superior to somebody, then we're doing all right, meaning that you've got millions of white folks who don't define their interest in material terms. They define their interest in terms of this thing right here. This skin color becomes, as Cheryl Harris, brilliant scholar at UCLA Law School, says, it becomes property. Whiteness is property in a system of white supremacy. And when you ain't got any other property, when you don't have any money in your bank account, when you don't have land and a nice big house, you will cash this currency every single day. And that's what folks have been doing for a long time. And Donald Trump, who doesn't read, opened up that playbook of American politics, saw that play on page one and was like, yeah, I'm just going to run that one. That one's been working for a long time. I'm going to stick with that.
And it's going to continue to work. Tim, do you have a couple minutes for me?
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to know why people are so afraid to talk about this. I am unchained and unshackled, as my friend April Ryan said now. And so I could talk about it. I did talk about it when I was on CNN, but not to the degree and not to the level of honesty that I can talk about this.
Yes,
now.
I like you much better in this iteration, I will say.
Well, everyone does. So we're going to talk when we get back. Why are people afraid of this? Why does it trigger these white men that they feel like they have to insult me or call me out or point out something about Black people because I'm pointing out something about the culture and the history of America? 2 minutes. Tim and I are going to have a real honest conversation. A word from our sponsors. The Don Lemon Show is brought to you by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Let's talk some facts, okay? Because across the U.S., politicians are pushing religion into public schools. 10 Commandments posters, chaplains without clinical training, and voucher programs rerouting public money to private religious schools that often exclude LGBTQ students and non-Christians. It is happening right now. But Freedom from Religion is fighting back. In a major win, a federal district court just blocked a Texas law that would have forced every public school classroom to display the 10 Commandments. This matters because they're defending the First Amendment in court, in Congress, and in classrooms to protect students from religious coercion and keep public education truly public. So learn more at ffrf.org/school or text my first name, Don, that's D-O-N, to 511-511. Don't let your rights be rewritten. Visit ffrf.org/school, or you can text Don to 511-511 today. Message and data rates may apply. Support comes from Ollie, the fresh dog food company that changed how I feed my pups. Now, look, if you know me, you know my dogs run the house, and I want the best for them. And that is why I switched to Ollie. They make fresh protein-packed meals with real human-grade ingredients, 5 slow-cooked recipes, all designed by vet nutritionists, delivered right to my door. Now, since starting Ollie, I've noticed a real difference in their energy. Their energy is up. Their coats look healthier. And even my pickiest eater, which is Gus, he cleans the bowl. Here's what you do. You take a quick 30-second quiz. Ollie personalizes your dog's meal plan, and you get access to on-demand health screenings through their app. And your dog's well-being, well, it starts with their bowl. That's really where it starts. So head to ollie.com/lemon. Tell them about your pup and use the code LEMON to get 60% off of your first box. They even back it with a happiness guarantee. So if you're not satisfied, you get your money back. That's ollie.com/lemon, code LEMON for 60% off today. Thanks to our sponsors. Back now with Tim Wise. Tim, this is from, I think it was around 2019, 2020 or so. And this was Christopher Wray when he was leading the FBI. And things are not much different. They're about the same now. Here's what he said.
A huge chunk of those domestic terrorism investigations involve racially motivated, violent, extremist motivated terrorist attacks. And the majority of those, of the racially motivated, violent, extremist attacks, are fueled by some kind of white supremacy. And I would say that the most lethal activity over the last few years has been committed by those type of attackers.
You have that. And then you have this. This is Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits describing what happened here. Now, Brian is, I think from the circumstantial evidence, it's looking in a certain direction. It has not been proven 100%, but he's giving some of the circumstantial evidence regarding the shooter in Michigan. Here it is.
The right is trying to do everything they can to blame the left for these mass casualty events, one that took place in a church in Michigan, another one at a restaurant. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, these two people who committed these awful crimes, the church shooter is a Donald Trump staunch supporter. In fact, how do we know this? Not just by pictures of him wearing Trump paraphernalia, but the truck that he parked at the church with an American flag and a Trump flag. These were two white Marines, not two transgenders, not two Democrats, not two minorities or undocumented immigrants. Young white males, former Marines, one we know for sure is a Donald Trump supporter or was a Donald Trump supporter. He's no longer with us. But they wanted to also talk about mental illness. Now, obviously, if you're willing to take somebody's life, an innocent person, in some cases, people you don't even know, obviously you're a little mentally ill. But Republicans want to talk about mental illness, yet they vote against bills that would allocate more money to help those that are mentally ill, or in the big and beautiful bill, taking away health care to over 15 million Americans. Many of those people are seeking mental health or getting mental health that they need, and they're going to lose that coverage. So what does that mean? It means more people are going to get their hands on weapons that are mentally ill. So Republicans are going to continue to lie and say that this was the left attacking Christianity, which it wasn't. They're going to lie and say that it was the left and left rhetoric that caused this to happen, which it wasn't. There's no evidence of that. So what are Republicans going to do? What excuses are they going to make this time? The last thing that they're actually going to talk about is all the violence in this country that is happening with all the weapons that are out there on the streets. But they don't want to talk about that. They just want to blame everything on the radical left because they're all a bunch of fucking liars.
And I'll put up some of the pictures. This is from the alleged shooter, some of the photographs that are out there. That's his truck that he drove into the church. You see the American flags. Reportedly, there's Trump flag on it. There's also photographs of him wearing a shirt, Trump 2020. And then there was another photograph. I think
there's a Trump sign on his the gate, the fence at his house.
Yes, there it is. And so, but yesterday they were saying that it was a stop Trump sign. No, it's a stop sign.
The Trump sign is behind the stop sign. It's not part of the stop sign. He has a shirt on in the picture that says "Make liberals cry again, Trump 2020." He is a. But here's the thing. I am fair-minded enough to not try to put that on every Trump supporter.
Amen. Thank you.
I wish they would be as fair-minded about Tyler Robinson and not trying to put that on everybody that stands up for trans folk or everybody, who is perceived as being quote unquote liberal or whatever. I don't think this guy represents the entirety of Trump's support. But what I can tell you is this: according to a report that just came out, there was a guy that interacted with him. I think he was running for office there locally, said he was canvassing. I guess he came to this guy's house. And this guy was talking about this shooter who's now dead was talking about his hatred of the LDS church, right? And so he goes and he attacks this Mormon church. Here's the interesting irony. You know who hosted Charlie Kirk's show today? A pastor who has a history of saying we ought to burn the Book of Mormon because the LDS church is a cult. So isn't that interesting? We're talking about Charlie Kirk being such a great Christian, and the guy who is hosting the show today believes the same thing, apparently, that this terrorist who just attacked a Mormon church in Michigan believed. And Charlie Kirk was killed in a mostly Mormon state on a mostly Mormon campus by a young man that was raised Mormon. And now you're going to have the substitute host be an anti-Mormon bigot, but you're going to tell us we on the left are the intolerant ones? Please, y'all can choke on that bullshit. That doesn't make any sense at all. Now, getting back to your question that you asked before the break, though, very important question. The question was, why? Oh God, now I forgot the question. It was really
about why people don't talk honestly about these things.
Why they don't talk honestly. I think the reason is that for whiteness to work, for the trick that we were talking about before the break to work, to convince white folks not to pay attention to the real problem, but to pay attention to the scapegoating, the bright, shiny object, the distraction. That's whiteness works by remaining invisible, right? So in other words, if you never put whiteness under the spotlight, you can put black under the spotlight. You can put Latino under the spotlight. You can put, Muslim Arabs under the spotlight. But if you put white folks under the spotlight, that is perceived as some unique break with the sort of social contract that says it's like Fight Club. We don't talk about white people. We know they're there. We don't talk about, first rule of whiteness is we don't talk about whiteness. And the best example of that, you've talked about it, the difference between the way we talk about crime. We know we hear about black on black crime. White on white crime isn't even a term that is used by anyone with any regularity, in spite of the fact that it is numerically far more common. So I looked it up today. For instance, the newest Department of Justice report on criminal victimization actually was released today. And so now the last 7 years, I went and counted up 2024 back through 2018. In that period of time, there were approximately, there were 2.7 million, quote unquote, black on black violent crimes, which is a lot, far too many. In that same period, there were 12.8 million white on white crimes. So the crime type that is almost 5 times more prevalent, 4.6 times more prevalent numerically, doesn't even have a label attached to it. And when you and so it's fascinating when you bring that up, suddenly people are going, what are you talking about? Why are you being racist talking about white people? But yet they can talk about black on black crime. They can talk about black folks and fatherlessness. They can talk about black cultural pathology. They can write a book like The Bell Curve that says black people are biologically or genetically less capable than white folks. And that's fine. But if you push back and you point out the pathological behavior of certain subgroups of white people, suddenly you're racist. It is a fascinating inversion and deflection, and it is what you do when you are desperate to maintain a system of racial hierarchy that has worked to your benefit for hundreds of years and that you're afraid of losing.
Tim Wise. Tim is the author of, as you said, Dear White People, correct? Was that
Dear White America.
Dear White America.
Dear White People is the TV show. I wish I'd written that. I would have a lot more money. That wasn't it.
He's an author, an activist, critical race theorist, and a senior fellow at the African American Policy Forum. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Sir.
So let's talk about what's going on across some American cities and what is at risk of getting even bigger. I want to play this. This is a soundbite from the Oregon Attorney General and what he said on television over the weekend and this morning, or all day today. Here it is.
Listen, you have a president that has started to attack our independent judiciary. He's attacked free press, and now you've seen the normalization of the United States military in American cities. We are not a third world country. We are America. It's happened in California, D.C. He's doing it in Memphis. He's talking about it in Illinois, and we received formal orders at 9:32 yesterday morning on Sunday. And it was my instruction at the Oregon Department of Justice that I wanted to be in court within 12 hours of a formal order. And we have amazing people that work at the Oregon Department of Justice, and we did it in less than 6 hours. And so that's why it's so darn important. We have to draw a line in the sand. This is America. We have the police, the Portland Police Department, amazing police department, is doing a wonderful job in keeping communities safe. We have the Oregon State Police, we have the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and we have an incredible district attorney in Multnomah County doing the work to keep the public safe. You don't need the U.S. military walking our streets in any country, in any city. That's not America.
Oregon is suing the Trump administration over deployment of the National Guard troops to Portland. And joining us now is the Oregon Attorney General, Mr. Dan Rayfield, and we're so glad to have him here. Thank you very much. Why is he doing this? Why is Donald Trump doing this?
You know, it's a real good question, right? I mean, you have a president that is getting his facts via social media. So it's either incredibly reckless to rely upon social media as you deploy the U.S. military into a city, or you have to come to the conclusion that he's doing it intentionally. And the only reason that you could do it, it's not for outcomes, it's not for public safety, it's to score political points. Or there are some people out there, and I think it's a valid question to say, is he trying to normalize the use of the U.S. military in our cities? And that is something you see in third world countries. It's not something that I ever thought would be a reality growing up in America. It's mind-boggling.
He compared, he called some of the things that happened, what he says is going on in Oregon, as insurrection. He is using his lawful authority, this is according to a spokesperson, to direct the National Guard to protect federal assets and personnel in Portland following months of violent riots where officers have been assaulted and doxxed by left-wing rioters. What is she talking about? This is White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson. What is she talking about?
I mean, how often do folks like you and I say, what the heck are they talking about coming out of the White House? I mean, that happens a lot. I think that should give us a little bit of notion. What's going on right now in Oregon is you have regular Oregonians, you have our elected officials taking videos and pictures of Portland, Oregon, showing, hey, this is the real Portland, Oregon. That's what's going on right now. And there's a disconnect from the reality of what the president is talking about, the rhetoric. And honestly, you know, if you wanted, let's say that those conditions were real, which they're not, but let's assume that they were. What would you do as a true leader You bring people together. You pick up the phone. You go talk to people. And you say, hey, I hear you got a problem out there. How can I help as a leader? How can we come together to fix whatever those problems are? Now, the truth on the ground is that violent crime in Portland, Oregon, since the beginning of the year has gone down by 51%. So again, there's a disconnect from reality. There's a disconnect from what real leadership looks like. It's not fear-based leadership. And that's what you have right now, which is incredibly unfortunate because we could do a lot of good together.
Yeah. So everyone was a bit confused and flummoxed about Portland. They're sending them to Oregon. Like, Oregon, what are they talking about? I mean, is there some rampant crime happening in Oregon that is unreported and doesn't make the national news, or that we have not heard about, that you guys are withholding and you blocked all the cameras and the news people from reporting on?
That's right, Don. It's a massive conspiracy that we got here in Oregon. We're really good at that. I mean, the truth of the matter, I started joking around on some of these programs where I was like, hey, I'll invite Donald Trump out to Oregon. I'll drive him around, and then I started getting these texts from state legislators saying, hey, please don't invite him to our state. So we're in this unique setting right now where, again, it's a weird world.
Yeah. In all seriousness, though, you've seen what happened in Washington, D.C. And you're seeing what can happen in other places where, in Los Angeles, where they send these folks. They can actually increase, I believe, the incidence of violence because, you see the ICE folks out there tackling people. You guys have to be concerned about that. Did you watching those pictures? Or did you see that stuff? And what's the concern level there?
Absolutely. So when we filed our temporary restraining order, we talk about that the presence of the U.S. military in our cities is not what you do to de-escalate, and it can make things worse. Now, the reality is when you mobilize the National Guard here in Oregon, they are Oregon citizens, and we need to respect that, and they're one of us in this dynamic. But that's not what you do. And so that is a present concern that all of us had. It's very troubling if we start seeing the patterns of what's going on. The United States cannot become the frog in boiling water. Think about it. Again, you had this attack in the very beginning on the independent judiciary, a really tenet of our democracy. We're starting to see attacks on the press. We're starting to see attacks on our elections. You have politicians, Democrats and Republicans, openly talking about gaming our electoral systems to maintain control. And now you have this normalization of the U.S. military across our country, California, D.C., Memphis, potentially Illinois, and in Oregon. This is not the America that I think all of us know and believe in. But I do believe we can come together. And I think these conversations are incredibly important for where we're headed.
I agree. This is the thing that he posted on social media. My team is reminding me that we have it. Him discussing sending troops to Oregon, where he's saying, at the request of the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, I am directing, it's always she requested it, so he's doing it. I'm directing the Secretary of War, whatever, Pete Hegseth, to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland. And any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I am also authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This language is incendiary, and I do think that it can cause incidents of unrest. And this is some of the incidents that we talked about, you and I just moments ago. I want to play this video for you.
10-year-old business owner says he was body slammed and pinned to the ground by federal agents during an immigration raid despite being a U.S. citizen. We're hearing more from him tonight as he files a $50 million lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security. Fox 11's Laura Diaz.
So you see what happened there, and he's filing a lawsuit. You filed a lawsuit against, but that's just one of many incidents like that. And it's not just the people that they call, that they're saying are criminals, and we don't know because there's no due process. So what do you think?
I just think we're better than this as Americans,
right?
In the country that we live in. And I know we can do better than this. And again, this is not what leadership in America looks like. And it's just disheartening where we are. I think this moment is incredibly important. It's why we knew that we had to draw a line in the sand. You don't let 200 troops come into an American city without having a conversation, filing a lawsuit, and forcing the president to justify the use of the American military in our cities. That is something that I think you will see Democratic attorneys general across this country drawing a line in the sand and fighting for these values, because this is not the America that I know and believe in.
I know you touched on this, but where are you with it? Is this stopping at all the troops from coming to Oregon? Because you said you filed an injunction. Is that what you did?
Don, you want to bore your listeners with legalese?
No. I just want to know where you are right now with that, and if that is in any way inhibiting them from coming in, or prohibiting them from coming in, or is it just in the courts and you got to wait it out?
No, absolutely. I'm just teasing. The reality is we wanted to be in the courts immediately to get in front of a judge to stop this before it happened. So we received a notification at 9:32 on Sunday morning. My instruction was I wanted to be in court in less than 12 hours of any formal notification. We were in court in less than 6. We have amazing attorneys and staff at the Oregon Department of Justice. This morning, we filed what we call a temporary restraining order to get in front of a judge. This is one of those immediate actions that, if we're successful, will pause, be a legal order to pause what the president is trying to do. And so we have presented that motion this morning, and we are in works with the courts to schedule that hearing, hopefully to get in front of them sooner than later, in less than a week.
My subscribers are really wonky and nerdy. I don't know if you can read up there, but Rockin' Robin says, we love legal minds. And so you're good. You wouldn't be boring us. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Please come back and update us. And you guys be safe out there. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the Don Lemon Show and speak to the Lemon Nation here on the Don Lemon channel. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you. Dan Rayfield from Oregon. Wow. I mean, that was... he's really good, and he has a great sense of humor. So I like that. He's a really funny guy. Okay, so we're going to get back to the program. Let's get a word from our sponsors, and then we'll get back and talk. Here it is. Support comes from Hexclad. You know, for the longest time, I was stuck choosing between stainless steel or nonstick pans. Stainless cooks like a dream, but scrubbing them, forget about it. Nonstick is easy to clean, but it flakes, it scratches, and it never lasts. That's not good. And then I found Hexclad, the pan that does both. Finally, I use the 12-inch Hexclad pan the most. It's big enough for a family meal, but it's light enough for weeknight dinners. I've seared steaks, I've made stir fries, even a perfect omelet, all in the same pan. And the cleanup, it is a breeze. Hexclad's patented hexagon design means it's scratch resistant, it's dishwasher safe, it is oven safe up to 500 degrees, and it comes with a lifetime warranty. What more could you want? Even Gordon Ramsay uses Hexclad in his restaurants and at home. That sealed the deal for me. You know it's Gordon Ramsay. Upgrade your kitchen with Hexclad, and you get 10% off at hexclad.com/lemon. That's Hexclad, HEXCLAD.com/lemon. Cook like a pro, clean up like a human being. Support comes from Lean. We've all seen the fad diets, the juice cleanses, the crash plans, the yo-yo weight loss where you lose a few pounds, you gain them back, plus a few more, maybe a lot more. Doctors call it weight cycling. Half of Americans do it, and it can raise your risk of diabetes, heart disease, liver problems, even stroke. That is why doctors created Lean. It is a non-prescription oral supplement designed to help people lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace and keep it off. Lean targets weight loss 3 ways. It helps maintain healthy blood sugar. It controls appetite and cravings, and it burns fat by converting it into energy. And the best part, it's not a harsh stimulant or a GLP-1 injectable. It's a daily supplement that you can add to your lifestyle. So take control of your health. I want you to go to takelean.com and use the code LEMON for 20% off. That's TAKELEAN.com, and then use the code LEMON for 20% off today. Thanks to all of our sponsors. And thank you to all of our sponsors. I see you ladies in the comments swooning over the Oregon Attorney General. That's funny. Anyways, yeah, nice guy there. Okay, so let's get back to the government is about to shut down, possibly. And if they do, I mean, well, the deadline is what, tomorrow night. If they do, it's going to be tomorrow night, and there's going to be a whole lot of services that shut down. Just moments ago, I told you I was going to update you. You're going to hear from the lawmakers. This is the Vice President of the United States after the meeting that they had in the Oval Office with Democratic leaders.
But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd. And now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally unacceptable. And we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to
Okay, and remember, they're in control of the government. These guys won't do the right thing. Y'all, let's just be real honest about this. This is healthcare. These are tax credits for healthcare. Remember all of the tax benefits and cuts that they gave the billionaires and the really ultra wealthy people, and they can't preserve the tax credits for working class people. Let's just be real honest about this. If it was, Democrats were in charge and Republicans were fighting for this, I'd be like, come on, y'all. I mean, this is tax credits for people to get health care. Bizarre. Chuck Schumer.
This is Jeffries, but Chuck Schumer's there.
Chuck Schumer's there, but I see Chuck Schumer on my little preview screen. Jeffries hops in. Here it is.
There was a frank and direct discussion with the President of the United States and Republican leaders, but significant and meaningful differences remain. Democrats are fighting to protect the health care of the American people, and we are not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of everyday Americans. Period. Full stop. There's a Republican-caused healthcare crisis that is causing hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics all across the country in rural America, urban America, small-town America, the heartland of America, and Black and brown communities throughout this country. And that crisis is happening right now. And that's why we believe there is urgency to both keeping the government open, reaching a bipartisan spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, their economic well-being and quality of life, while also addressing the dangerous Republican healthcare crisis.
So that was Hakeem Jeffries, and you heard from the Vice President before that. Chuck Schumer also spoke. I want to play something for you. Because at the beginning of the show, I talked to you guys about this is the game. This is all a game, right? That all pretending like they something was broken and they fixed it. Look at us. We fixed it. When really what's at stake here, the reason that they won't, this is the only sticking point, is that they want poor and working people to be able to keep the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act. That doesn't sound so unreasonable. That sounds like common sense. So I'm going to play something for you. This is Steve Bannon and Russ Vought. And they are cheersing a shutdown. And they're saying, look, they're going to explain to you exactly what I said, that this is a game. They're going to show you that what I said in the beginning, this is the evidence of it. Here it is.
How do we fight off a CR? A government shutdown, they make it the biggest deal. It's not the end of the world. We should not bend it all on a CR, because then we've given the heroin addict a taste of heroin again. Have we not, Russ?
I don't think anyone should be afraid of a government shutdown. I managed it for President Trump. We made it as painless as possible, consistent with the law. And it's actually what's necessary to pass these bills individually, is because how else are you going to get moderates to vote for spending cuts if they're not up against the fact that they need to pass these things to get out of a shutdown themselves? So I think there should be no talk about a stopgap measure at this point. They need to be focused squarely on moving these bills and doing the best they can. It's going to be, Matt Gaetz was right. Some of the amendments that we would support may not pass.
Okay, so there you go. That's the T. That's the ticket right there. And so I didn't get to, because I was Project 2025, Rustwald. There you go, Karen White. You got it. So I didn't get to, I was going to spend a little bit more time with Tim Wise, but we were fortunate enough to have the Oregon AG here with us. So, I let Tim go, and then I went to the Oregon AG. But I really wanted to talk about why we don't have these conversations. Why are people afraid of having these conversations? I think Tim really, he just brought it home when he said, you can talk about everybody else. You can demonize Black people, immigrants, Latinos, everybody. But you can't talk about, like, the moment you start doing it and pointing out that what's been happening is white on white crime, that white men have been shooting white people or other white men. And you can't point that out. And then the folks who, the hit dogs that holler, will point out, well, look at what's happening in the Black community. Look at what's happening over here. Look at what's happening here. If we were talking about cancer and someone goes, why aren't you talking about HIV? You'd be like, well, because we're not, that's a whole nother subject. Now we can get to that subject. We can talk about what happens among Black people or in inner cities or whatever. We can talk about that. But you can't talk about white people, white men, and your anger. You're being so aggrieved, being snowflakes, weak. You can't talk about that. Now, I'm not talking about all. I'm talking about the hit dogs that holler, the ones who are out here, with the big microphone and a little courage, keyboard courage. Yeah, I'm not even going to go there. There's one, the closeted one, who's always up in my shit. One of those right-wing guys. Benny. Girl. I'm just saying. Anywho, if you want to know anything about the Don Lemon Show, go to donlemon.com. donlemon.com. You can find out anything about the show. If you want to watch the main show, hit that watch button, and there you go. You can subscribe. The subscriptions are free, and you can also become a member. As a matter of fact, we're about to have a members-only show right after this, and we're going to talk our shit. That's what we're going to do. We're going to talk very candidly, because it is a private stream and we can do and say what we want. You can join, again, as I said, if you're at a certain tier of our membership, I think it's the Lemon Heads and the Lemon Legends, then you get to be there in the private stream coming up next. There it is. There it is, right there. The ones who are at the top tier, the Lemon Legends, you get to be on the program. You get to state your case. Your face is on there. You get to speak your voice. Have you ever seen our Legend show? They're on there the entire hour, just telling, sometimes they're just yelling at me saying, you're wrong, Don, shut up. Oh, well, I like that. Okay, and so if you go back out to donlemon.com, you can go to figure out where we stream on all those platforms, the Apple podcast, the Spotify, and also iHeart Radio. And then our Substack is there. I posted two things today. One is about Kamala Harris, and I said Kamala's getting her wings. Excuse me, where we're discussing Kamala Harris being out there saying her piece about a book that she has written. And then also Jimmy Kimmel, you see the one of Jimmy Kimmel. It's really about free speech, where it says censorship is a choice. And I talk about all the folks who say that they believe in free speech, but really don't at the end of the day, unless you believe their particular ideology or what they think. And then all the people who are bending the knee, and because of money, the corporations and the media companies, etc. So check that out on our Substack. And then if you back out of that, you can go to our merch store and you can get this t-shirt or any other things that you want. I keep telling you guys this. I did not want the merch, but you wanted the merch. That Tone and Tone burgundy shirt that's up there turned out to be a real winner. I like that shirt a lot. It's very subtle, but that's a good one. I like that one. I like the green one as well. I'm wearing the blue one. The blue one is just subtle. In person, it's easier to read, but under the lights, it's hard. That green one is really great. And then what are the other colors? They've got pink. That's the one I'm wearing right now. And so I think it also gets better as you wash it. And then there's the pink one. Or like, I like that tone on tone. At first I was like, I don't know. That one I wore the other day just jumps off the screen. Okay. We have any merch picks? Or are we good?
No merch picks today.
No folks wearing the merch. Okay, guys, we're going to see you over in the private chat. And so now you're informed. Oh, look who's here. Must be meal time. Oh my gosh, you've been eating a lot. Say hi. Are you ready to eat or did you eat already? I think he's ready to eat. Oh, no smooches. You can't kiss me. It's not cool. But you can lick my hand. That's Barkley. There's Boomer right there. Do you see it? Take down the Don Lemon. Can you take down the Don Lemon? You can see Boomer's tail down there. Hi, Boomer. Hi. I would pick Boomer up, but then Barkley is jealous and he'll get mad and then they'll start a fight. So, hi, Barks. All right. Anyway, so hi, Barkley. You're so cute. I love you. Okay, so guys, thank you so much. I'll see you in the private chat. You can be, oh my gosh. All right. I'm not supposed to pick you up like that. It's not good for you. So I like you to be informed without being inundated. So you can be informed without being inundated. And until I see you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time for Hot Topics, see you in the private chat. Turn the TV off.
Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.